and not worry about the non-emergency stuff, let the hospital or somebody else worry about that, but let's just worry about the 911 calls. And again, when we start talking about financing, fragmenting out that part of the business is, in my opinion, never a good idea. It's always better to keep that revenue available to use in the broader system. There's about $200,000 in annual cash that is generated from the non-911 transfer. And my recommendation is that in the end, we end up with a exclusive operating area here, and that all those calls are considered part of the system, so that whatever provider comes in has that revenue available for lowering your subsidy. The next important question that you have to decide is who's going to be the governing body. I'm a real believer that this is a multi-jurisdictional problem. It's not just the hospital district problem, it's not just the county's problem, it's not just the city's problem, it's all of the problem. And that if whoever participates financially probably should have some voice at the table. And I think that there needs to be a multi-jurisdictional approach to the governing body. Now, I think that some different ways of looking who takes the lead. State law of Texas does not require any organization, any entity to run EMS or provide for EMS. Everybody could throw their hands up and say, we're just not going to do it, and the state of Texas wouldn't come after you. But the state of Texas does provide better statutory protection and some freedom to cities. And my recommendation would be that you look to the city to be the contract holder with hospital district and the county involved in that to either interlocal agreements or joint power agreements or whatever governmental entities you have. Cities can more likely make this exclusive so nobody else can come in here both for 911 and non-911. That's less possible for counties and hospital districts than it is for the cities. Those are decisions that have to be made and be made pretty quick. Then we start talking about the service provider. And when we talk about that, please understand that I don't have any particular bent whether doing it internally is better or whether doing it with a private contractor is better. I have seen both types of systems work extremely well. And I've seen both types of systems fail miserably. It really has an awful lot to do with who the provider is, and it has an awful lot to do with how well you contract. I will tell you that most people who have a problem with an ambulance provider don't have a good contract with them. They haven't set up those criteria to make sure that they know what is expected of them and that there's some service accountability. So the decision later on is going to be for you guys to decide, what are we going to do long term? We're going to bring this thing in-house completely. We leave it out in the market and contract for it well. So the long-term decision is yours to make, and there's some pluses and minuses for that we'll talk about in a minute. But the service provider, short term, we're out of options. The service provider has got to be contracted with. And we're going to have to find a private provider or an outside contracting provider, sometimes maybe a hospital district or not-for-profit, to come in here under the criteria that we set, under the terms that we set, and to run the system starting March 28th. I don't want you to think you're alone in this. This is happening not just in Texas, but all over the country. We had a discussion with an ambulance provider this morning that's involved in 5 RFPs across the coverage area of cities and counties that have lost a provider for whatever reason. EMS is changing. As you know, healthcare is changing. And usually what happens in the hospital world follows pretty quickly in the ambulance world. This is a medical component. It's fraught with the issues that you have with medical billing and Medicare and Medicaid. Nobody wants to pay us money for doing what we do. That transportation and picking up a sick person and point A and taking them to point B is getting harder and harder and harder to get a dollar for that. And because of that, we're starting to see people turn back to the governing entities and say, you've got to pay us something to do that. There's too big a gap. We know what it costs us to run this. We know what we're going to be able to get from our billing and collecting, and it's not enough. And I do believe that you're in that situation, like many other cities and counties, where there's going to have to be some subsidy dollars considered for this type of contract. There's some commonalities in the system that don't have to pay subsidies. I think it's important for you to know what those are. The commonalities for systems that don't have to pay subsidies are usually highly concentrated populations that have enough call volume to pay the cost. The Fort Worths, the Arlingtons, the Austins, that's a good example, but there are a number of systems that no taxpayer dollars are used to cover EMS. But those systems, what they have in common is that they are concentrated and they have the ability to pay for their system through the user fees. Funding and revenue, I want you, first of all, I want to apologize, first of all, that the reports that have come out over the last couple of days, I want them all considered drafts. I'm going to send you a new one, a math error on this one on page 6. It doesn't affect anything with my recommendations or really the end results of this, but if you've got your report with you and you want to turn to page 6, under the total column where it says 405, 370 in the first set of numbers, that should be 604, 450. And on the total, it should be 780 to 600. So let's talk about user fee revenue. This is when you can bill and collect for running an ambulance call. First of all, your contractor at East Texas Medical Center has never been required to give you numbers of what they're running, both in the city and the county, but they've been kind enough to do so. They want a smooth transition, even though they made it clear they're out of here. They don't want it to be as bumpy. They would like to make it as smooth as they can. And the following numbers apply for you guys. In your 911 responses and transports, you have 1,727 transports. Even though you've got to pay for the responses, you're not getting paid for anything but the transport. So there's 509 non-911 transports, and there's 1,727 911 transports in the city of County combined. Before we had revenue numbers from these guys, I used a rule of thumb that is pretty common in this region, and that's average cash per transport of $350. I didn't want to spend a lot of time trying to explain and get to here's what the gross billing is, here's what the contractual allowance is, here's what the bad debt is, here's the money that comes in the door. At this point, that's just white noise. And what you guys have to be concerned about is how much cash do I put in the bank every transport I run? And the general rule of thumb in this region is about $350. And so that, you do the math on that, that gives us, in user fee revenue in this system, about $782,600. Now, I received some numbers from East Texas Medical Centers that are better than this. Okay? In fact, they're better than this enough that I want to dig into them deeper before I say to you, here's the money that we have available in user fee revenue. But it's probably somewhere north of $800,000. If we use $800,000 in our thinking today, we won't be far off when we start talking about recommendations. But there's $800,000 in the system in cash every year for running the transport. Just as a general rule of thumb, if we use $500,000 to put a 24-hour truck on the street, you can see we're upside down already. Right? That's $1 million in cost, and we only have $800,000 in revenue. And I will tell you that that range of cost will differ based on the provider, based on where the provider operates, and many other different criteria. But I would say it's safe to say that the range of what you're going to hear from people interested in operating here for their cost to operate a 24-hour unit probably will range from $400,000 per 24-hour drop to $650,000. I know that's a broad range, but again, depending upon what kind of provider comes in, where they are in the region, what other incentives they might have for being in this county, you're going to see that range be somewhere between 450 to 650 round numbers. So we're upside down. We're upside down with the fact that we're only going to collect $800,000 at best. And those of you, I'm speaking to the choir here when I'm talking to a hospital board, ambulance rates aren't what they used to be. As you know, Medicare and Medicaid are for the most part maxed out, and it doesn't matter what you do with ambulance rates, you're not going to see any extra dollars from that. The private insurance in the ambulance business, we basically consider that, the self-pay, we consider no pay. Those folks pay probably an 8 to 10% collection, and then the commercial rates and self-pay will be affected by rate increases. I'm not talking about rate increases yet, but I would think that there comes a time in the system where you're going to look and say, okay, we're charging this. What happens if we charge a little bit more? In this document, I put an example in there based on your numbers of what happens if you charge an extra $100 in your ambulance rate. If you decide we're going to raise it $100. With the payer mix in the city and the county, you're going to see an extra $7 a run in the city and less than $20 in the county. So it's about 16 bucks for every $100 you raise. And there's an upper limit to that as well. Those of you who sit, behind a dais and you've got the citizens come in, you start charging $4,000 or $3,000, you're going to start seeing people coming in and go, wait a minute, that's way too high. There's an upper limit of what you can do, and as you can see, it's a very inefficient way to get cash. You're talking about 16 bucks for a $100 rate increase. That's not the greatest way to go about getting your cash. So, start talking about non-user fee subsidy. We know what we can bill and collect. How else can we get money to pay for the delta in the system? As the judge alluded to earlier, there's 3 taxing entities in this county. I do not profess to be an attorney. I don't profess to know the ins and outs of who can tax and why, but I do know that those 3 entities, the hospital district and the city and the county, have the ability to tax or increase taxes. I also know that each of those entities, the city represented here in the county and certainly in the hospital district, each of those entities have their own sets of issues with raising taxes or taxing. And I'm not sitting here pounding on the table saying you must do that. I'm just telling you, there's 3 bodies in this county that have the ability to raise taxes or generate tax dollars to pay for the delta in these ambulance costs, and it's a consideration that you're going to have to look at very quickly. Emergency Services District is another funding source. I talk about it only in this report under the funding element, and I don't talk about it in the method of providing service, because they will have the same options. The Emergency Service District doesn't have to run EMS. They have to provide or provide for EMS. So in the end, if the Emergency Services District takes over this area, they're going to have to make the same decision long term. Do we do it ourselves or do we contract it out? I've seen Emergency Services District across the state do that differently in many different areas. The options for the Emergency Services District would be to form a new one and overlay it over the boundaries we're looking to do, which is the ESD that has fire only. You can do that. You can ask the Emergency Services District that covers this area, that does fire only, to do the petitions, hold the elections, and change their charter to include EMS. Or you can ask the Great-Northern Emergency Services District to get the signatures, hold an election, and vote to change their boundaries to include all of Houston County. So the Emergency Services District is a good option, and I think a very favorable option long term. If we started today and started getting signatures and got them verified and had an election in November and is successful, 2016 is used to make that assessment. You're not seeing the additional revenues in 2017. You can't wait for that. Something has to be done in the interim before that time period. The Emergency Services District is certainly one way of raising revenue, not tied to user fees. Another way is a combination of memberships and assessments. Membership programs used to be a really big deal in our industry. Some companies made their living on selling memberships to their citizenry. Acadian is a perfect example. Tulsa and Oklahoma City were great examples of really hard marketing, really forcing the issue, selling membership plans. Membership plan is for $60 to $65 a year. Everybody in your household is covered for ambulance services. Basically, the ambulance service builds and collects on your insurance only, and you have no out-of-pocket expense. So it's a protection against out-of-pocket expenses. I will tell you, the days of selling enough membership plans to make it a revenue generator are long gone. It just doesn't happen that much anymore. Even though East Texas has probably got about $100,000 that they've brought to themselves for selling their memberships, it really is more of a customer service and a protection against the governments from having really high ambulance bills. If somebody comes to complain to a judge or a city manager and say, well, my ambulance bill is really high, you've got the perfect answer. You could say to them, well, if you went and bought a membership plan, it would only cost you $65, you wouldn't have to worry about it. Assessments, separate from that. State of Texas used to allow, and I'm having legal counsel look to make sure they still do, used to allow assessments for emergency services. There were some systems in South Texas that actually did mandatory assessments of every citizen in their area to pay for their emergency services costs. I've actually seen a plan work where those were combined. And in Oklahoma, it's done in about 5 or 6 different places where through a water bill or utility assessment, every citizen is enrolled in a program where at $3, $4, $5 a month, out of their water bill is paid to the ambulance service, and in return, the ambulance service gives them a membership plan. And everybody's opted in. 2 cities I'm aware of in the state actually force them in. And so really that's nothing more than a tax. And I know people see that as a bad word. 3 of the cities I'm familiar with actually let them opt out. In fact, the city of Stillwater that I helped set up in 2010 or 11, we did a mandatory opt-in. We provided a membership program to every household, so nobody in that coverage area ever paid an ambulance bill if they had any kind of insurance at all. And we generated over $1.2 million. And today, 4 years later, 92% of the people are still in. So even though they could opt out, they chose not to.